It is time, my friends, for the library show. This show has been taking place for over 25 years, ever since there's been a library at the Oregon Country Fair. The first one was to launch the library itself, and we've done it every year since. The past two have had to be virtual because we've all been in lockdown, but we're going to try to make this as close to the library show as we can. It's going to feature my music director, Paul Benoit, my former music partners, Samantha Parton, Amanda Stark of Stark Raven Chandler, Frankie Hernandez of the convenience store Troubadours. And Caden Spooner and Christine Gunn. And very special guest, Evan Greer. A little talk from founding librarian Jim Evangelista. Here we go with the library show. If you're in a place where you can unmute yourself, go ahead and do that so we can hear some. Thank you, I appreciate that. I would love to say it's great to be here, but it would be much greater at the fair. But alas, we cannot. So with that said, we will have to, through the wonders of technology, a little later, we will have founding librarian Jim Evangelista, who is actually on the site at the Oregon Country Fair, and he will be reporting to us on location. The good thing about doing this show virtually is that people who have never been to the fair can actually be here, or people without camping passes. Now, I think one of the most important things that I do at the library show is I get someone who has never been to the fair or never performed at the fair before to get up and do something. And this year is no exception. And first up is someone who has been an acquaintance of mine for many years, but in this past year, we've gotten much closer. She was discovered by my dear friend and fellow Hellraiser, Ann Feeney. And Ann took her under her wings and carried her all over the country, which is where I met her. And after Ann's passing, we became a lot closer as she was instrumental in putting together the celebration of Ann's life. And she got her obituary into all the big papers like the Rolling Stone and the New York Times. And she was instrumental in putting together the Ann Feeney Hellraisers Fund for emerging artists. So please welcome to the Jim Alberti Theater, the virtual home of the Oregon Country Fair's library, from near Boston, where it is midnight. Please welcome Ms. Evan Greer.
Hey everyone. I've been wanting to come to the Oregon Country Fair for years. Our dear mutual friend, longtime touring partner, comrade, Ann Feeney used to always try and convince me to go. Really wish that I could be there with you all in person. Missing Ann a lot right now, so go check out the Ann Feeney Hellraiser Memorial Fund if you want to help carry on her work and legacy. But right now I'm going to play a song for you all off my new album, Spotify is Surveillance. And this song is called Back Row. And if you miss live music, you miss that experience of being together in person, and you feel sad about it, I promise this song will make you miss it even more and feel even sadder about it. So enjoy.
Remember when basements felt like stadiums, under the glow of Christmas lights, people packed together on the best goddamn nights of our lives, and I regret every single show that I spent in the back row, talking shit on my phone behind a table all alone. Every party that I skipped, every friend I lost touch with, when the crowd would sing along, it felt like we belonged. Body odor and cigarettes. There were nights when toxic masculinity couldn't even ruin the mosh pit. And damn, I miss the tastes of a duct-taped, dented, beer-drenched SM58. Every single show, when we were right in the front row, screaming every fucking word, feeling seen and being heard. We were outcasts, we were freaks, we were idealists, we believed when the band played our favorite songs. It felt like we belonged. We felt like we belonged. We felt like we belonged. We felt like we belonged.
Thanks again so much to Chris Chandler for having me, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you, Evan. That was great.
Awesome.
So good to see you again. I believe that Evan's contacts were put into the chat by our wonderful ushers here. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Red Cell and to thank Karen Billard, Shannon Flattery, and Tim Mason for the 830 Club for putting this together and doing things like putting people's contact informations in the chat, which I can't do while I'm doing this. So really, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I want to start with this, or for the first part of my sort of live segment is to really have to acknowledge that we have all lost a great deal over the past 18 months of lockdown. And as we are starting to come out of it, I think that it is important to acknowledge how much we have lost. And that is what I want to start this evening with. I wrote and performed this for the virtual midnight show last night. I don't know if many of you saw that, but I'm sorry for doing a pre-recording on this one, but I am doing that. This is what I did last night for the midnight show, and I thought when I did it, I thought that it would be really important to start the library show. So this is what I did right here in the Jim Alberti Theater for the virtual midnight show. There is a light that gets us up and gets us out of bed each day. But it is not the blinking blue neon of digital clocks announcing a central point in a specific time zone. Nor is it the red ball breaking the horizon, creating the very time zones of night and day. The light of life does create its own time zones. Here, now, back then, and tomorrow. The light of life creates and crosses each of those time zones. And my friends, we have all crossed too many distant horizons that we never thought we'd see in these past 2 years. No Faire family for 2 years. Yes, in these past 2 years, there are many of our family members that shall not return to the magic of the Faire. None of us are untouched. I, for one, lost my best friend, Ann Feeney, to COVID this year. She will not be in another of these midnight shows. The Faire family has lost too many to name them all. It is a long list. I have written them out and placed them in a bowl, and I will pull out 3 to represent the whole. You see, my friends, there are those that believe in an afterlife, and I am one of those. But afterlife is as complex as the soap operas of our daily lives and as simple as human history itself. As misunderstood as the pearly gates, as overinterpreted as the river Styx. Afterlife is simply that, afterlife. The life that we leave here on earth, after life. It is the life that we leave, the world that we have helped create for those after our own life has left us. And I am absolutely positive that you, Midge Campbell, and I am absolutely positive that you, George Atia, and I am absolutely positive that you, Anita Sweeten, have left us a perfect heaven here at the Oregon Country Fair. Thank you for helping us to create this, and may we all leave something as wonderful as what you have left us. That is the light that gets us out of bed each day. And may we continue to shine your light right here in the heaven that you have helped create, so that others may feel it right here in the afterlife.
Powerful.
Whoa.
Mhm.
And thank you for coming tonight and being here at both the 830 Club and the Jim Alberti Theater. Move my ghost light. The reason that this is called the Jim Alberti Theater is because Jim Albert Hobbs was my mentor. He was another one that we lost from COVID. He was I studied stage lighting in college, and he taught me stage lighting. And we both left the field of stage lighting in the same year. And he went on to form the Alberti Flea Circus. And I tried so hard to get him to the Oregon Country Fair, but I failed to do it. In our last conversation, we talked about the possibility that he might make it. When we went into lockdown and I started doing the poem of the day, which eventually became the poem of the week, and it started becoming this little puppet theater, I had heard that Jim Hobbs had passed, and I decided to name this theater the Jim Alberti Theater. And then I started looking around, looking for an obituary for him, and I could not find one. And I started asking our mutual friends, And eventually I met found Tom Lima, a clown in Australia, who said, no, Jim's not dead. He's living in an assisted living facility in Winston-Salem. And I started calling all the assisted living facilities, and I actually found him on Thanksgiving Day. And we had a nice chat because we usually talked on the holidays over the years. And I told him about it was supposed to be a Zoom call, but technology got in the way, and it was a voice call. And we promised that we would talk again on New Year's Day, and I would get to show him on a Zoom conference. You could just show him this theater here, and I found out that on New Year's Eve he passed of COVID as well, and that's why I called this the Jim Alberti Theater. And I got in touch with his son, and they have bequeathed me the actual flea circus, which is here, and the organ grinder cart is being used as a prop table at this moment, but eventually the theater is going to go to Reese Thomas, who hosts the midnight show, and he teaches vaudeville to children, and he's going to use the theater and keep its namesake as a tool to teach children about the art of vaudeville. My very first musical partner was my very dear friend, and we were actually married. I was trying to get a green card into Canada. Yes, I was a frostback. Amanda Stark. This photograph was taken in Pittsburgh by one of Ann Feeney's friends, and Ann Feeney paid for the photo shoot because we were living in this little truck together, and we traveled all over the US and Canada performing. And as we drove down the road, she was such a musical inspiration on so many levels. But as we rode down the road, she would play the guitar while I was driving, or I would play the guitar while she was driving, or she would read to me the newspaper. Remember newspapers? She would read to me novels that we were reading, and sometimes they would all just merge together. And I remember in Dallas, we were booked in a club in Dallas. I don't remember the name of the club, but it was Super Bowl Sunday, and Dallas was in the Super Bowl, and it was basically a sports bar. And, kid you not. And I was standing out there chain smoking before we went in, and we were talking about what went on. And I asked Amanda about what we were reading and some of the songs that we were singing. Let's do that on stage during the Super Bowl. And we did, and we went out of the car and got some books and some newspapers, and we played folk songs on stage to basically no one listening to us on stage. They were all watching the football game. But we wrote on the side of the van in Sharpie, what the mileage was and what happened that day. And so some of you have seen pictures of that vehicle that we traveled in, and or remember that vehicle that we traveled in. And we have not played together on stage in a very long time. So would you please welcome an updated version of one of the songs from this chestnut, going back to the early 90s. This is, yes, it is actually Amanda Stark and I performing together.
Right on.
As Stark Raving Chandler. We are doing an updated version. Please welcome to the stage from Portland, Oregon, Amanda Stark. Sure.
Woo!
Hey Chandler.
Hey Amanda.
Hey everybody. Nice to see you.
You too.
This is a Woody Guthrie song.
Only in this hand, I hold a copy of John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. And in this hand, I hold a current copy of the Dallas Morning News.
I ain't got no home. I'm just a rambling round. I work when I can get it. I roam from town to town.
and fewer hands. The number of the dispossessed increased, and every effort of the great owners was directed at repression. The money was spent for arms and for gas to protect the great holdings, and spies were sent out to catch the murmurings of revolt so that it might be stamped out. An entrenched corruption, grinding poverty, economic stagnation, fear of violence in their home countries, all but compel people to seek relief in the U.S. For once, California belonged to Mexico and its land of Mexicans, but they could not resist because they wanted nothing in the world as fanatically as the Americans wanted land. And a record number of unaccompanied minors are crossing the southern border in an effort to escape the harsh economic conditions. The tenant system won't work anymore. One man on a tractor can take the place of 12 or 14 families. You'll have to get off the land. The plows will go through your dooryard. And smugglers are now paid for multiple attempts to get their clients across the border in remote areas where the heat can kill them. And the great owners met to discuss ways to protect the great holdings. They discussed ways to intimidate, to kill, and to gas. And always they were in fear of a principle: 300,000. If they were to ever move under one leader, that would be the end. 300,000, hungry and miserable. If they were to ever know themselves, the land would be theirs. And all the gas, all the bombs, all the rifles in the world would not stop them. And in these conditions, they say, explain why moms, dads, teens, and kids would take the risks that they do, leaving behind their families, traditions, embarking on a journey that requires walking through the desert. And one man, one family, driven from the land. I lost my land. A single tractor took my land. I am alone. And in the night, one family pulls in. Now 2 men squat on their hams. Here is the node, you who hate change and fear revolution. Keep these 2 men apart. Make them hate, fear, and suspect each other. For here I lost my land is change, and the danger is here. For 2 men are not as perplexed as one. And from this first weed there grows a still more dangerous thing. I have a little food, plus I have no food. And if from this problem the solution is we have a little food, then the movement has direction. And this is the beginning. This is the thing to bomb, changing the I to we. I ain't got no home. I am just a rambling round. I work when I can get it. I roam from town to town, but the police make it hard wherever you may go. 'Cause I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Take that last line with us. I ain't got no home in this world anymore. Now changing the I to we. We ain't got no home in this world anymore. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Wow. Remember those days.
Oh God, Amanda, that was so great. It's so lovely to work with you again. I hope we can do it again. Maybe a tour in the Northwest. Maybe February. So good to see you again. The Grapes of Wrath. You know, that piece is probably the single most important piece that, at least for me creatively, that I ever did, because that was the one that just established this sort of collage thing that I'm trying to do, and you are a creative force, Amanda Stark. Sure, thank you so much for doing that. After Amanda and I split up after making the Generica record, we went on to the next music director was David Rovics. A lot of you know him as a political activist and force of his own nature. If it happened today, David has a song about it. He was so great, and he started my next musical odyssey, and we started off together at the Kerrville Folk Festival. It's 18 days of camping, and we rehearsed our act. We didn't even know what we were going to do. We just put the show together. And while we were there at Kerrville, a staff member we ran across by the name of Samantha Parton. And she went on to form the Be Good Tanyas later. But also in that little odyssey, we hooked up with Oliver Steck on the accordion. And we called ourselves Avoiding Godot. You should have seen me on the road. Those days you had to go to a truck stop and they had phones, and we would sit at the table, and I'd buy them breakfast while I sat and made phone calls, and I'd be on the phone going, I'd be on the phone going. The name of the act is Avoiding Godot. 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 Just it'll be funny. People will get it. It's funny. Trust me. And for some reason they booked us, and we went out. We made a record called Convenience Store Troubadours. We called ourselves Avoiding Godot, but we called the record Convenience Store Troubadours. And this is one of the tracks from it. And please welcome from somewhere in British Columbia, my dear friend, Samantha Parton.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Samantha. It's great to see you again. You look like John Lennon during the Imagine period. Quite building. I wasn't quite expecting that. At times, I feel enmeshed in the loneliness and the longing of all things. And when I think about working with you again, I ask myself, what would I rather be?
The words have changed on the water tower. In the town where we first met. But it still feels like I'm coming home. It's been years since I left.
And I wonder if inanimate objects ever ask the same question.
Play me a song on your guitar, the one my grandma used to sing, though she played it on piano. It's still the same song to me.
Sometimes, I swear to you, I will hear an exhausted sofa sigh, longing to be a hammock tethered between two palm trees and swaying in a tropical breeze. The hammock sighs, longing to be a magnificent bed in a luxury hotel where two champagne-sipping sophisticates meet for an illicit tryst. The cigarette lighter that they use after their stolen hour sighs in a crazed desire to be the eternal flame illuminating a graveyard of forgotten soldiers who gave their lives in a forgotten war. The forgotten war sighs. I wish I were just a quiet evening at home.
Every friend and family on the front porch of the house where I grew up. But I don't mean I'm not the same girl as I was when I dated you, my love.
You ever think that those practical number 2 pencils that accountants use ever fantasize about drawing bawdy pictures of urban sophisticates in a luxury hotel? Does the luxury hotel ever dream of dropping its facade of rectitude and becoming a flop house, quartering a poet sprawled on an exhausted sofa, scrawling unpublishable verse while being pestered by bill collectors on telephones, which grow disgusted of tormenting the multitudes for niggling sums, so the telephones themselves begin orating the Sermon on the Mount? Does the Sermon on the Mount ever fantasize about being a Vegas lounge act?
Play me a song on your guitar,
What if there was a great awakening
the
of
one
atoms
my grandma used to sing.
where they all remembered their vast and intricate history?
She played it on piano.
An atomic explosion of memory.
It's still the same song to me.
We might hear the tale of a fleck of lint floating in the air.
On your guitar,
There was once part of a bushman's pelt,
the one my grandma used to sing.
which contained the tooth of a saber-toothed tiger, which evolved into an alley cat, which was gutted to make the strings of a violin, which entertained elegant guests in a luxury hotel.
Little church down on the corner, well, it's now a Circle K. Grandma, she was made to rest there. But I still go down there to pray.
And that fleck of lint now has nothing but time on its hands to float in the air and sing of love, of war, of mythical beasts, of beauty, of poverty, of sadness. And that fleck of lint now drifts unnoticed into your beer, and you drink it down. And it sees the joys and the sorrows of your life until you too are buried, forgotten in the earth. But you will rise again as grass, which is eaten by cows who go to slaughter and are served in a luxury hotel and washed down with beer. And we all get to have another Oregon Country Fair library show all over again.
It's still the same song to me.
Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sammy. I really appreciate that. I had a little trouble getting the screen down on that one. Thank you. Oh, Sammy, it's so great to work with you. I hope we get to do it again soon. soon, soon, soon. After avoiding Godot, we only made one record, and I'm really proud of the Convenience Store Troubadours record. But we split up as young creative people are apt to do, and I'm so proud of Sammy for going on to form the Be Good Tanyas, and for what all David Rovix has done after that period. And Oliver Steck is still a force of nature, and he gets better every time that I see him, unquestionably. And the next incarnation was because we called the last record the Convenience Store Troubadours, I thought we should call the band the Convenience Store Troubadours. And Frankie Hernandez stepped up at the Kerrville Folk Festival. And there's a little, I'm trying to get the lights out of the way there. It's a little shot of us playing at the Oregon Country Fair. We put out a record called Hell to Pay. And I'm actually kind of proud of this. It was voted the worst album cover ever by the manufacturer. And it's true. There you go. It was terrible. I was doing my own artwork, and I had like hours to put it out, to get it out by the deadline. And I just said, this is the album cover, and I ran with it. But the band was great. Laura Freeman, Frankie Hernandez, and Chad Austinson. We came together at the Kerrville Folk Festival. We rehearsed the show, we made the band happen, and we took off on the road. In fact, that year, the truck that I'd been traveling around with Amanda in had died, and I had bought another $250 pickup truck. And I had worked on the construction crew for Kerrville, and I got some of the staff to help me build the trailer there at the festival. And we built the trailer that we took off in. It was made out of plywood. It must have weighed 2,000 pounds. I don't know how it got us anywhere. I remember that the roof ripped off of it at some point. But we had some really good times, and I think we made some songs and some records that I'm really, really proud of. And I don't know, I'm particularly proud of this one because, and that last poem that I read with Samantha singing, I had written with Phil Rockstro, who had been my mentor, and I've written together for a long time. And this poem also I wrote with Phil Rockstro back in the day, and it was for lack of a better word, it was our hit. So please welcome from Ashland, it's Asheville near Nashville, Ashland near Portland, from Ashland, Oregon. Please welcome Frankie Hernandez.
Well, fell out.
Frankie, welcome. I used to love doing this one with you. Let's do it again one time.
I'm the king of swingers, walk the jungle VIP. I've reached the top and here to stop, and that's what bothers me.
No.
Wanna be a man, Bangkok, and stroll right into town. And then be just like the mother man. I'm tired of moving around. Ooh, I wanna
What's wrong? I wrote it backwards. I shouldn't have.
talk like you do.
Anyways.
And if like me, well, you learn to be human too.
Now, the first anthropoid to ever walk a wreck was probably having a bad day. I bet his mother followed him around saying, "Now, Theodore, don't you do that, or else you might get stuck that way." But he was a rebel, didn't give a damn, looked her straight in the eyes and says, "Look, Ma, no hands." But at school, everybody began to taunt him, saying, Theodore, we always did suspect this. Why, we always thought you to be a homo erectus. Theodore is a homo. Theodore is a homo. But soon the word got out to the ruling class elite about this monkey who had begun to walk on his feet. And they said, well, what's going to happen if this guy grows, say, a cerebral cortex or an opposable thumb? Boy, we'd be out of a job. This guy can make us look real dumb. But as with anything that challenges the orthodoxy, the ruling class elite did what they always do, what they do to this day. That's right, they called out the moralists to fight their war by proxy. And the moralist said, we'll help you out with this. We'll say, the only reason this boy is walking erect is to, proudly display his privates. And if this keeps up, our civilization would end in moral decay. So the congressional body of monkeys, a congress of buffoons, if you will, enacted a law that said, and I quote, they said if this keeps up, we'll all have to wear a warning label fig leaf. And they condemn this process of natural selection and anything at all to do with Theodore and his conspicuous erection.
Now don't try to fool me, man, cub. I made a deal with you. What I desire is man's red fire, so I can be like you. Come on over here, man, cub. Tell me what to do. Give me the power of man's red flower, so I can be like you.
But soon the word got out to the weirdos, to the outsiders, the kind of people that would watch this show. And they saw how walking erect made the powers that be mad. And that's when it became a countercultural fad. Soon everybody was talking about natural selection, and they were all doing the latest dance craze known as the conspicuous erection. So, the next time you see something that you don't understand, well, don't dismiss it with a wave of your hand. Because if I were you, I would not be too proud, because it might just be your hairy knuckles that are dragging the ground. Frankie Hernandez, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Frankie. Thank you.
Frankie, rock and roll.
Frankie, what a talent. What a talent. I know that they miss you in the Texas area. I know you've been a Portland, Ashland resident for a long time. Look at that young picture of Frankie. Oh my God, can I get it without the, look at him blowing that trumpet. Oh my God, at the Shady Grove stage at the Oregon Country Fair. Oh my God. Frankie has not only been a musical director with me, but he's also been a sideman for many years and has been on several records. It's just a long history with Frankie, and I hope that it continues. What a creative force you have been in my life. So one more time, a round of applause for Frankie Hernandez.
Hey,
Oh, so you guys up for a story?
yeah.
Tell us a story, Chandler.
I'm gonna say it again. Are you guys up for a story?
We want to hear a story.
Story.
yeah,
Why don't you give us a story, Chris?
This is my most requested piece. This comes off of the Generica record, and well, a little anecdote about this piece. Whoa, my theater is not as sound as I thought. The storytelling world has become its own little thing, and I was trying to a few years back. I was really struggling to make it as a storyteller in the San Francisco area, and the thing is to get on the Moth Radio Hour, and they have all kinds of competitions to get on it and all that kind of thing. And I did one of those things, and I won one of the competitions, and I at the after party, which I hope all of you will come to the after party for this event. At the after party, someone challenged me as to the truth of this story, and I told them that it was absolutely true, because to be on the Moth Radio Hour, it has to be an absolutely true story. It can't be myth. It can't be something made up. It has to be something that really happened. And I chose this one. And he challenged me as to where it takes place. And his friend was a techno nerd, and he got on his phone and he Google mapped it in, and he found that actually the place that I'm referring to in this event actually exists. So I was justified in it. And here you go. This is called This Is Not a Folk Song.
Yeah.
You know, most of my stories start off with the phrase, my car broke down. Only the time I'm thinking of, the car didn't exactly break down. The engine, it fell out of the vehicle. None of you've ever had your engine fall out of the vehicle or not, but trust me, it is a sight to behold. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do, so I called up my oldest friend in the world, who said he'd be glad to drive the 3 hours down from Atlanta to get to LaGrange. I sat on a milk crate and panhandled change. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to panhandle change while you're wearing a t-shirt that says, just say no to a real job. But the folks of LaGrange, they all seemed annoyed as I purchased a Schlitz malt liquor tall boy and went back to my milk crate where I had to wait. I shared my last cigarette with another vagrant who was peddling flowers, and we swapped stories and wasted the hours. And his story had it that these two guys got really drunk on Night Train and MD 2020. They were right on this boxcar, and they got caught and were thrown from the moving vehicle and were subsequently killed. His story had it that their bodies were so polluted with Night Train and MD 2020 that when they were buried in a shallow grave outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin, nothing will grow there to this day. I'm like you, I had to tell my friend that I did not believe his story, but I somehow thought it was beautiful. But actually, this story here is about my friend Frank. See, Frank, he's my oldest friend in the world. We did everything together when we were growing up, because see, our buildings faced each other there in Stone Mountain, Georgia. We had rock wars against each other. Went to kindergarten together, went through puberty together, went through juvenile delinquency together. Hell, we even detoxed together. When Frank got there, he did what he does best. What he does to this day, he didn't say a word. Instead, he just handed me a bottle of tequila because he knew the way I'd be feeling. And together we took off about 75 miles an hour past the Shotgun distilleries. And I started laying it on real thick and heavy to my friend Frank, how I didn't think the past 30, 31, 32, 33 years of my life amounted to a damn thing. Travel around the country, live in the back of a pickup truck, maybe every now and then getting to writing some songs about the people that I meet, and maybe get to play them in a coffee house, or maybe during a pandemic I can do them in a Zoom concert. As I started getting real thick and heavy to my friend Frank, and to my self-pity rap, I looked over to my friend Frank, and old Frank, he still hadn't said anything. Instead, he just looked up, which made me look up. And I noticed for the first time these giant iron butterflies ejecting and rejecting their landing gear, which could only mean one thing, that we were headed towards the Atlanta airport, the world's largest airport. You probably been there, right? If you had to fly from Portland to Seattle, you probably had to go through the Atlanta airport just to get there. Anyway, Frank, he exited there at the last remaining exit at Hateville, Georgia. We were on this little dirt road. We were fishtailing up along it till we came up to this chain link fence. And Frank, he nudged it with the front bumper of his car. That gate swung open. We found ourselves no longer near the Atlanta airport, but we were in it. And I don't mean in the parking lot. I mean, me and my oldest friend in the world in a small pickup truck managed to get down between the runways, and we were in fact drag racing a 727. And I swear to God there for a minute, we were gonna win, because we were about flying. Till we saw this other chain link fence coming up on us real fast. Frankie locked it down, we donutted around, fishtailed up alongside of it. Frankie hopped out of his car, he reached in his pocket, and he pulled out a little white piece of paper, undid a combination lock, pulled that pickup truck inside. And my friends, right now, today, there sits between the runways, the Atlanta airport, about a 20-yard fenced-off area. Now, the reason that 20-yard fenced-off area sits there between the runways, the Atlanta airport, is because it is a graveyard. And I don't know how it is where you live, but where I'm from in the state of Georgia, you got to ask a family's permission to move a graveyard. And my friend Frank's family just simply did not give the Atlanta airport permission to move that tiny little graveyard. And I looked down at some of the dates, and they were all there from before the Civil War. I don't know if you know much about the city of Atlanta at all, but to find anything that's there for since when Sherman built the first interstate system through to Charleston, it's relatively significant. And I looked down at one of the dates. The one that caught my eye, it said, Emmanuel, age 7, house servant. Now, I went to ask my friend Frank about that. But old Frank, he still hadn't said anything. Instead, he climbed up on top of the tallest monument. So I climbed up there with him, drinking tequila with my oldest friend in the world. Watching these planes take off so close, we could actually make out figures in the window. And I noticed from that height, the planes, they have to jog left and then dart right when they're taxiing into the Atlanta airport just to avoid this tiny little graveyard. And I started thinking about my measly 33 years of living on the road and how that probably never will amount to a damn thing. But here was the life of one 7-year-old slave who could slow down or at least change the steamrollers of progress 150 years after his death. And that, my friends, I thought was beautiful.
I remember that one. Remember that one.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I haven't done that one in a while, and I really appreciate that. Let us have some.
Yeah.
And it's all true,
Yeah.
all true.
It is. I was completely vindicated when that guy pulled in the Zoom map and he came into the Atlanta airport on the Google map and it's satellite view and it came down and they did a surround around the while we're sitting there having cocktails at some bar in San Francisco. Oh my God, I felt so vindicated. Needless to say, I did not win the competition to get on the Moth Radio Hour, but it is an actual goal of mine to get on that. One of these days, maybe if I keep doing library shows, I will be able to get on the Moth Radio Hour. Speaking of the library show, and my apologies to Shannon on this one, but we do have an actual report from what's actually going on at the library. And I have to admit that we had to record this a couple of hours earlier because Jim called me and said that it would be too dark at this time. It's like well after midnight here on the East Coast, and I'm sure that the sun's gone down there. So we recorded it while there was still a little bit of daylight, but just from a few hours ago at the actual site of the Oregon Country Fair. Please welcome founding librarian Jim Evangelista.
Oh, oh, oh my God.
Free books! Free books here! Get your absolutely free book here at the library. So, here we are at the library. And what a lot of history this is for me and for all of you. We sure lived a lot of life here. And I'm just so happy to be able to spend a few minutes and check in and talk to you. You know, the library started, God, forever ago. RB from the Ducanavo, he one day brought me down here when I was asking about doing some work for them. And he said, you know what? I got an idea. This used to be X-Ray Park. And then it was called Puff Palace. And a lot of people hung here. And this was during the time when the fair was going under a lot of scrutiny from the outside about conspicuous consumption and all kinds of stuff. And so RB said, look, if you could do something with this space that would make all of that go away, something really positive and pleasant, then this could be yours forever. Forever in a moment. And that's what I did. My son, Diego, and I, we started going to all the bookstores in town and gathering up books, new and used books, and we brought them down here and just gave them away. It was beautiful. That first night, that first Sunday night at dark 30, that's when the Chandler show happened. And that was a great friendship, and a lot of beautiful music happened here. During the day, this place was filled with people. We had American Sign Language storytelling. We had puppet theater. We had the Book of Secrets. My favorite story is this woman who came and said, hey, you said you've got a book that would change my life. Well, where is it? And without thinking, I just pointed at the shelf next to me. And I said, right here is a book that's going to change your life. And she walked over and she pulled the book from the shelf and she looked at me and her jaw dropped. And she threw her arms around my neck and hugged me and said, you weren't lying. This book changed my life. If it wasn't for this book, I wouldn't be here. And I looked at her and I said, what are you talking about? She said, my parents met at a charades party in South Africa, in Johannesburg. And my father had guessed the name of a play, Mama Oh Mama, Papa's, or Papa Oh Papa, Mama's hung you in the closet and I'm feeling so blue. And my mom was so impressed that he remembered that book that she walked across and they met and I came to be. And she flipped the book around that she had just grabbed from the shelf that I pointed to. And there it was. That was pretty amazing. Amazing things. But more amazing than anything is the friendships we all made. And I'm grateful that Chris Chandler is a friend and that he would do his Dark 30 shows here. Ann Feeney, Paul Benoit, so many gifted people came and played here. Those nights when we first started it, I used to go because it was so dark here and there was no lights and I had no electricity. I'd go over to Jim, who ran the lantern booth. You all remember Jim. He used to give me those wicks. And so I made kind of like a vaudeville stage lighting. And it was so amazing. Well, look, I could go on forever. Chris, why don't you take it away? See y'all.
That was great. Thank you, Chris.
Jim Evangelista, thank you for the history. And I know that Shannon, as a historian, appreciates that perspective. This is a thing that. Oh, was that worse than I thought? This was a thing that Jim gave me on the 13th year of it, and now I think we are at 26. Yeah, 26. We both had to powwow for a while to figure out what year that actually was. And 1995 is what we came up with. 1995 was the first one, and those lanterns came out of the woodworks, and they continue to come out of the woodworks now that LED lighting and everybody's lighting is different than it was then. But it still happens, and I am so looking forward to the next one in 2022, and we will make it happen. The library show has been such an important part of my life. I love the story, Jim, that you told there. I will want to just relate as I was listening to you tell that. I remember one time, I don't remember what year it was, but I was fretting about wanting to read a poem. And I really got to do this poem tonight, and I can't remember it. And I looked on the library shelves, and lo and behold, there was a copy of an anthology of my poetry, and I was able to look up the poem and be able to read from the book from the library itself. It's a really magic place. I thank you all for gathering around, and I really thank the 8:30 Club for putting this together. Could we have another round of applause for the 8:30 Club? They are doing wonderful events, and I know a lot of you applauded wildly when I said, could I keep doing these after the pandemic lifts? And you said, yes, this is the place to come. The 8:30 Club is fabulous. Tim Mason, I won't go into his bio, but he has been so influential in my life, and I really, really appreciate him being there and have believed in me from back in the days of being a street musician in Boston. I remember one night walking down the streets of Boston, being particularly as a Southerner, where in Atlanta the bars closed at 4 a.m. In Boston they close at midnight, and I had been being a street musician in Boston, and I'm walking down the streets of Boston with Tim, and he says, "Do you ever think about playing the old Vienna Coffee House?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'd be, of course, that's like the place to play." And I booked the place. I'm like, what? He's been my drinking buddy for months. I had no idea. And he said, yeah, I like what you do. And he booked me. It was one of the first really important. I think I opened for a guy who wrote songs for the Monkees. But it worked. It just worked. He had this magic of making things happen. And Could we have a round of applause for Tim Mason, who
Yes.
has done so much in the folk music community. And I want to close this out with a person that started the show off. Christine Gunn has just been there on the sidelines throughout my life. She's a world-class cellist. She started, I don't know if any of you saw the sort of walk-in video that we made. That was all Christine doing pre-recorded or record as she plays stuff. She is a genius. She's a world-class cello player, and her and Caden Spooner said they would be thrilled to be a part of this, and I am so glad that Christine Gunn has been a part of my life. She has started so many of the library shows. She would just go out there and just start playing in a vast wasteland of trees and paths and drunken and tripping hippie people walking by, and she's just there playing the cello as a calling card that something's going to happen here. She's done that so many times, and she started off the show tonight. Please welcome back to the stage. We've got her live. I'm gonna throw up the screen here while the curtain's down, and please let it be known that you love Christine Gunn.
Yeah, we love you, Christine.
Hey, Christine, Caden Spooner. Y'all heard Christine Gunn at the beginning. It's a nice fire y'all got going there. Be careful with that up there in Washington State. Put my jacket on for this one. Stop and think that maybe, just maybe, there really is love. And there is death. And there is laundry. And that's all there really is. As for me, my life is a thrift store. No walls. The moon looking down. Let me tell you tonight, she is a thrift store diva in a silver evening gown. She is an orb of luscious dust, all gussied up with borrowed sunlight. She turns it into silver. She's been shortchanging us right from the start. Untrue, the tide of jest. You only know the moon by the light she reflects. So as I stand a while in these aisles of merchandise that become my life, a sports jacket, a necktie, I come across a set of wings that remind me of the pair that I once had and lost. They're on display next to a counter of broken hearts. And as I fingered the wings dilapidated down, that necktie opened its eyes and replied, "You know, champ, without its wings, even the bird of paradise himself ain't nothing but a dandified chicken." It's true, I once saw the bird of paradise without them highfalutin wings. You know where it was? It was in a Chick-fil-A, and it was being lowered into a vat of boiling grease, but it rose
flows like a mixed metaphor from its sugary breading, turned a Midwestern Methodist family of 5 into living Pez dispensers. And they were promptly arrested by mall security for being uninventoried merchandise and now doing hard time in a maximum security prison somewhere beneath Disneyland.
Sun gives the moon all of its gold. She turns it into silver. Unfair, unfair, cry the broken hearts. She's been shortchanging us right from the start. Untrue, untrue, the tide of jest. We only know the moon by the light she reflects.
So needless to say, I purchased that necktie. Oh, what would you do? And the sports jacket. And the set of wings. And a Pez dispenser with the face of a Methodist. But don't tell him. I shoplifted the heart by placing it in the vest pocket of the sports jacket. For I knew that stolen hearts were better somehow. And I knew that I'd be needing this apparel for my date with the moon. And she is already dressed.
She turns it into silver. Unfair, unfair, cry the broken hearts. She's been shortchanging us right from the start. Untrue, untrue, the tide of jest. We only know the moon by the light she reflects. Sun gives the moon all of his gold. She turns it into silver. Unfair, unfair, cry the broken hearts. She's been shortchanging us right from the start. Untrue, untrue, the tide of jest. We only know the moon by the light she reflects.
Thank you all so much for gathering around here at this wonderful library show. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.